Did you know that fried rice is among the most ordered food from Chinese restaurants in America? And its origin is basically as a means for using leftovers. Many times, leftovers taste better the next day. Maybe that's why the Salem, Massachusetts sea captains really went to China. I'll talk about all that and how to make my version at the campsite in this week's Making a Mess with the Yankee Camper beef teriyaki fried rice.
We're going to put together the ingredients for the fried rice with beef teriyaki recipe. Now, this is a relatively complex recipe and it has a number of ingredients. But to start, we're going to put the spices together, and to do that, we need 1 tablespoon of vegetable flakes, teaspoon of minced onion, and 1/4 teaspoon of minced garlic. I also need 1/4 cup of long grain white rice. Now, I'm using Carolina brand, but you can use any white or brown rice that you prefer. Next, I'm going to measure out 1 tablespoon of shortening and put that into a small container. And I've done that here. This is a Coughlin's 1 ounce container, and I'm just going to seal that up just like that. The other ingredients that I'm going to need are 3 small packages of soy sauce. That totals 1.5 ounces. Your teriyaki beef. Now, I've got teriyaki tender beef bits, but beef jerky works just as well. These just give you a little more texture. Dried egg crystals, and that's 1 tablespoon. A dash of black pepper. I'm going to add that right into the egg mixture. Now, you don't need a lot of black pepper, just a little bit for seasoning. So I don't know if you can see how much I've added there, but it's not a lot. And the other item that you'll want, although it's not necessary, is some kind of a vegetable. And I've selected Libby's diced carrots. This is a 4-ounce snack pack of diced carrots, and that will also go into the packaging. Take a paper bag, mark it fried rice with beef teriyaki, and put into that bag all of your ingredients. Seal this up, and you're ready to go when you're out in the field and preparing to cook your meal.
In his 1785 work, The Task, English poet William Cowper states, "Variety is the spice of life that gives it all its flavor." But at the same time, spices are the food ingredients that could change your life by making you rich. There are 5 basic flavor profiles: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami or savory. Spice is actually a sensation, not a flavor. Adding spices to food, however, certainly made them more palatable. And making bland food taste better meant that people were willing to spend money on that. Although salt has been used in food preparation for thousands of years, cinnamon is considered the oldest spice used in cooking. Originating in Sri Lanka, cinnamon was part of the Silk Road trade. Although named for the fine cloth from China, the trade route was best known for bringing exotic spices. Starting in the 2nd century BCE, Food enhancers such as clove, ginger, turmeric, nutmeg, black pepper, and cinnamon were all transported via the Silk Road. While there is some debate whether Marco Polo actually went to China, or if he ate pasta there, there can be no doubt that the Chinese people had been eating fried rice for over 800 years at this point in time. It's also likely they were using some of these spices to flavor the dish. The problem was getting these ingredients from the Far East to the Western world took time and cost lots of money, thereby making them available only to the rich. If there was a way to cut the time it took and increase the amount carried, one could become very wealthy. Europeans looked for an easier way to get to Asia without having to use the Persian middlemen. This was the primary goal of Christopher Columbus in 1492. He didn't actually make it to Asia, but he brought back chilies as a consolation. Using the Aztec word for the fruit, he added the term pepper to describe its heat, being similar to that of the peppercorns from western India, thus naming its inhabitants Indians. Other explorers followed for much the same reason, such as Vasco da Gama in 1497. He sailed to India around southern Africa and brought back cinnamon and black pepper. John Cabot, exploring for the English in 1497, found Newfoundland, although it was never actually lost. In 1499, Amerigo Vespucci set out to see if the New World was actually part of Asia. It wasn't. By 1519, Magellan verified there was a huge hunk of land in the way of getting to the precious commodities from the Far East. When the Suez Canal opened in 1869, it allowed ships to go from Western Europe to the Near and Far East easily. However, even all during the 19th century, Europeans were still looking for a way to get to the east by boat, traveling west through a northwest passage across North America. With the slow fluctuation in the Earth's temperature since the last ice age, in 2007, the Northwest Passage, first used by Roald Amundsen between 1903 and 1906, was nearly ice-free in the summer for the first time. Now you know. Let's go back to the campsite to start our recipe. I hope you're enjoying this video, and thank you for watching, but I don't get any compensation for this. However, if you'd like, you could buy me a cup of coffee. I'll put the link in the description down below. Thank you.
So let's go ahead and make our fried rice with beef teriyaki. To start, we're going to take our mess kit, and we'll need the fry pan. We'll put that over here. We're also going to use our small pot and a cup for measuring. Place the spare cup over here. And we'll place the larger pot off to the side as well. Let's unpack the ingredients that we put together in our mise en place. We have our beef teriyaki, diced carrots, our small bag with the fried rice and spices, some dried egg mixture, our vegetable shortening, and 3 packets of soy sauce. We'll start by draining the liquid from the diced carrots into the cup. And that gives us, about a quarter of a cup. Then we'll bring the liquid up to a half a cup using water. We'll pour this right into the pot, light the stove, We're going to place that pot right onto the pocket rocket and go ahead and cover. That should take about 5 minutes using the pocket rocket on high. So while that cooks, we're going to mix in 2 tablespoons of water to the egg mixture and let that sit. 1, 2. Mix that up. We'll set that aside for the moment. See how our water is doing. Oh, that's a nice boil. We're going to take the rice and all of the spices, pour that right in. Give that a mix and reduce the heat to just a simmer. Additionally, we're going to add in the beef chunks with the teriyaki. We'll cover the pot and let that cook for about 10 minutes. While that rice is cooking, we're going to take the vegetable shortening and add it into the frying pan. If the lid starts to pop, this is starting to pop, your heat's too high, go ahead and turn it down just a bit.
During the reign of King George II, British sea power continued to expand until after the 7 Years' War, what Americans call the French and Indian War, when they were arguably the most powerful maritime nation in the world. By the time of the American Revolution, this authority had been challenged but not overcome by the French for 15 years. Despite the loss of the American colony after its independence, Great Britain and its allies continued to rule the waves into the 20th century. Problems with the fledgling country's merchants receiving and selling goods abroad made the prospect of United States ships sailing to India, the Spice Islands, and China a viable and potentially lucrative prospect. But this meant taking on the established trade houses such as the East India Company of Britain and the Dutch East India Company. Apparently, naming large corporations didn't require very much creativity. Less than 6 months after the signing of the Treaty of Paris, officially ending the war for independence, the Empress of China, also known as the Chinese Queen, was the first American vessel to enter the port of Canton. 2 years later, in 1786, the Grand Turk, a 3-masted frigate owned by Elias Haskett Derby of Salem, Massachusetts, was the third American ship to complete the journey, beginning what would open the floodgates to immense wealth for the small Massachusetts port. So much so that Derby is said to have become America's first person to have accumulated a fortune exceeding $1 million. Interestingly, one of the items that the ships carried to China was ginseng. The popularity of the plant in Asia, especially China, led to the reduction of wild ginseng being available. It turns out that the American version of the root proved to be similar in properties and effectiveness, thus creating a ready market. This became even more important in the U.S. since the belief in its medical ability had come into question in both America and Britain by the end of the 18th century. Ginseng, through trade, could be converted into hard items like porcelain and textiles like silk in China. They could also be sold to provide funds for coffee, pepper, indigo, and similar rare luxuries not available in other parts of the world. Everything would soon change, however. Following the Revolutionary War, tension between the former colony and Britain remained high. This was due to several factors. One was that the British had agreed in the Treaty of Paris to withdraw from forts along the northern U.S. border, but had refused to do so. A second reason was the taking of American merchant sailors from ships and forcing them to join the Royal Navy. Third, among others, was the British flooded the United States markets with goods, but enforced tariffs and restrictions on items from America to their ports. Friction remained high between the two countries and escalated when Britain declared war on France following the execution of King Louis XVI, fearing the French Revolution would spread. Although the U.S. desired to remain neutral, both France and Britain put restrictions on America trading with the enemy. The budding U.S. government made several attempts to appease both countries, but became mired in the politics of these two ancient enemies. President Jefferson believed he could force the issue and create respect for America by refusing to deal with either by eliminating the U.S. as a market. He therefore signed into law the Embargo Act of 1807. Depending on your viewpoint, this may or may not have had unintended consequences, in that it killed the lucrative trade of New England merchants, especially in Salem, who were mostly Federalists, Jefferson's opposition party. By the time the Embargo Act was repealed in 1809, the damage to Salem's economy was irreversible. It did, however, force Americans to buy textiles from New England, paving the way for the next big boom. When Salem became a city in 1836, it recognized the town's rich history by selecting for a seal a ship under full sail approaching a coastal land in the East Indies. In the center is a native Sumatran holding a parasol. Above is a dove with an olive branch. The motto below reads, in Latin, "To the farthest port in the rich East." Now you know. Let's head back to the campsite and finish up our fried rice.
So the rice has got about another minute and a half, 2 minutes. And we'll open it up and we'll check it. So let's take a look at that rice. I'm going to put a pot holder down in front of me. I'm going to move this off of the heat. Open it up, take a look. It's a good sign. Oh, that looks lovely. The rice has got a little bit more moisture with it. I don't know if you can see that. We're going to put this back on for another minute or so and let it absorb the rest of that liquid. So it's been cooking for another 2 minutes. We're just going to check it again. Oh, that looks much better. So we're going to set that aside and we're going to put the shortening onto the pocket rocket. Turn the heat up to medium and just let that vegetable shortening melt. You can use your fork to get it sort of all the way around the pan. Also, you can tip the pan, get all of that shortening down into to heat up. So as you can see, the shortening has just about melted. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit. You can move that vegetable shortening around in the pan until it starts to shimmer. Once it begins to shimmer, it's now ready to cook. You can add your carrots in and let those heat through. Heat those for about a minute, stirring them around, making sure they get completely covered. Don't let your heat get too high. And then you can add the egg mixture right in. Stir those around. Once the eggs are mostly done, because they're going to continue to cook for a little while longer, just put your rice mixture right in. Now the easiest way to do that is to move off the heat, put the rice right in, and then stir all of that right around, getting everything all mixed nicely, and return that to the heat. Well, that starts to heat through. Open your soy sauce and dump those right in. And mix that around, making sure it gets covered as much as possible. And don't worry if a carrot escapes. We have one more soy sauce packet that we're going to put in. And heat that completely through. And turn the heat up a little bit if you need to. Making sure that the mixture is completely covered. Yeah, that's starting to fry a little bit. Doesn't take too long. Doesn't need a lot of heat. Just let it get thoroughly mixed. Once it's heated through, remove it from the stove and turn off the stove. And there's the fried rice with beef teriyaki, and I'm just going to plate it up here. Put this up like this. Beef teriyaki with fried rice.
I'm going to eat my supper and clean up my mess. If you've enjoyed this video, please take a moment and give it a thumbs up. It just lets YouTube know that you enjoy what I'm putting out. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I put out a video every week on the meals that I cook in my mess kit, places that I camp, and the camping gear that I use. And I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. In the meantime, get outside, and thank you for watching.